All right, welcome to this not debut issue, but episode number one of Alchemical Transformation of Mind, Body, and Spirit. This episode, technically episode number one, delves deeply into profound spiritual wisdom on the powerful journey through progressively transcendent levels of consciousness and the quest for mystical communion with God. You can substitute your word of choice for God if God triggers your RTS, religious trauma syndrome. I like intelligent infinity. Sometimes I use the all that is or the prime creator. And when I'm feeling particularly adventuresome, I refer to Source as the divine grid programmer.
Namaste, namaskaram.
However you refer to the ultimate source of all consciousness, awareness, that we are all fractals of, each of us in our own way represent a portion of God's consciousness. But progressively, this powerful journey that we all experience as a powerful, progressive, transcendent levels of consciousness in this quest for mystical communion with the divine grid programmer. Throughout history, human beings have used various ways to reach out to God, to the divine grid programmer, and strive for divine communion that are valid and complementary. However, some ways are more straightforward and imminent than others. The spiritual rebirthing process is initiated by a divine call. And how I resonate with that statement is in the following way. I had made many videos since the event where my Kundalini activation occurred, and I harvested myself for ascension with the violet ray. And I've referred to that experience and always tried to do so in a matter of fact style. And one particular video, a person made a comment on that experience I had, and they shared that they had had a similar experience, and that, ever since that time, they were on this quest to reproduce it, and I don't know if they had alluded to like possible illicit substance use, like using something outside of yourself, like synthetic products, whatever it is you kids are into these days, to reproduce that experience. And, I was thinking to myself, man, that experience that I had was life-changing. And there were definitely fantastic inner experiences and stories that I can relate. However, they're all very personal. And I feel that was a experience that wasn't so much like I certainly didn't plan it out, this Kundalini activation. I had no idea that this was going to happen. It just happened. And after the fact, I had to kind of go back and piece it together with my experience. I mean, I suspected that was what was going on because I have been involved with yoga, specifically Kriya Yoga, through Paramahansa Yogananda, going all the way back to the early 1990s, or actually before that, 1988, when I got into college. But anyway, so been, intimately familiar with yoga and yoga practices, never specifically those set out to activate Kundalini. It was just an interesting subject matter. Anyway, but this is a divine calling. And that experience that I had, I believe, was that. It was my knock on the door to basically separate who I was, or who I wished how I wish to commit myself going forward. And I was given a choice, and it could have been very, very different. And in fact, I believe it was set up, my surroundings and how I was living my life, if it was expected of me to go the other way. But for the grace of God. So anyway, this divine call, which may come in the form of a specific life event that induces a complete re-questioning of existence and the subsequent lifting of the veil of reality. This unfailing call propels a person into a spiritual crisis that initiates profound inner transformation and culminates in a complete regeneration of mind, body, and spirit. So that's what this is all about. And ultimately, this regeneration results in an alignment, a congruency between all of your aspects of self. Um, in this mystical journey, which it is a mystical journey, and it's also a collective mystical journey. Everyone's gone through it in their own fashion. Some perhaps are still going through it, but everyone on this planet is meant to go through it. And it's part of this culling, it's part of this harvesting process of ascension for the planet, going into the next level, which is harmonic universe number 2. But however you describe it, it's a mystical journey to divine union. And a personal hero of mine is Joseph Campbell. In his comparative mythology studies, he calls this the hero's journey. And the way of the cross in mystical theology, the St. John of the Cross, and Kundalini rising, which is in, obviously Hinduism, but it's all, and yeah, because, you use the word Kundalini, it doesn't relegate that experience to the Hindu system. This St. John of the Cross in Revelations, that is all about his Kundalini activation experience. Now, in the domain of psychology, however, the stages of personality development are described by Maslow's, talking about Abraham Maslow and his hierarchy of needs, and the theory of positive disintegration, which is a forerunner of the theory of post-traumatic growth. Yes, I was from 2016 until 2021, I was in a sort of a state of controlled demolition as I watched my life unravel in various stages. But it was this sort of controlled demolition in some aspects. Some aspects it was a free fall, but it culminated in my life-changing experience in September 24th of 2021. So anyway, but I want to share this from the Bible, from what I like to call the quantum Bible, because the Bible has many different levels to it, and the books are chosen depending on which version, and it's edited depending on which organized religion is wanting to control you in which fashion. However, there is still quantum wisdom within the pages, and I'm going to share some of that now. All who have this hope in him purify themselves, just as he is pure, or she, or they. And that was from 1 John chapter 3, verses 3 in the New International Version. But all who have this hope in him purify themselves. So yes, this is a purification process. This is meant for you to let those things go that no longer serve you, to have the strength to recognize those things. But no one will escape this change, this shaking up process, culling, harvesting, ascension. What are the rapture? The Christians, some Christians believe in this rapture, tribulation, all that stuff. It's not happening quite the way they think, because they've all been gaslighted and brainwashed by their organized religion. But here at the Om Bond New Earth Ashram for Compassion and Strength, it is our hope to purify ourselves with gnosis, with divine gnosis, and this process of profound psychological and spiritual self-emptying, getting rid of that which no longer serves you, follows the initial call, and this is known as kenosis in Christian theology, and that's from Philippians chapter 2, verse 7, the dark night of the soul in mystical theology, which we've mentioned that, St. John of the Cross, and the phases of trials and temptations in comparative mythology, according to Joseph Campbell. Mystical theology, though, is the branch of theology that deals with the attainment of direct communion of the soul with God. In mystical theology, the dark night is followed by the stages of illumination and divine union. In the psychological domain, these stages are mirrored in the four-stage model of the creative process: preparation, incubation, illumination, and verification implementation. And the psychologist names that process stems from his name Wallace, Wallas, circa 1926, when he or she, I'm not sure of the gender at this point, it doesn't really matter. But in comparative mythology, though, which I'm quite familiar with, divine union is denoted as the mastery of two worlds or the restoration of divine order. It's when your ego becomes divinized. It's when your right brain and your left brain become synchronized, harmonized, when you are in congruency. All aspects of yourself are in alignment. You have met the guardian of the threshold, to borrow from deeper occult knowledge from Helena Blavatsky, Rudolf Steiner, of course, in the tradition of Thelema from Aleister Crowley. He talks about that, crossing the abyss, meeting the guardian of the threshold. But essentially, it's where how you've been living your life and what your subconscious belief structures are and how they line up. And if they don't line up, there's a great shaking. And that's where Anubis comes in. Anubis, Fleet Commander Anubis, you might be familiar with the image of the scales, master of the scales, wearer of truth, who has mocked the feather of truth, in which your heart, when you leave this plane, which you do when you're initiated, when you're going through, like I said, my Kundalini activation was very intense and very detailed with many different stages. And I just can't, it's nothing that I personally want to share uh, because quite honestly, talking about it, much less even remembering it, thinking about it, it wouldn't make sense to third dimension psychology. Of course, they would probably maybe perhaps want to like lock me up for insanity, perhaps. Um, However, preparation, incubation, illumination, and verification implementation, this is all this process, the mastery of the two worlds, right, left hemisphere, divinization of the ego, bringing heaven to earth. That is what this is all about, because there's no more second guessing yourself at that point. You've either gone, the Anubis, Fleet Commander Anubis has either, weighed you and found you wanting, and you go that path, or you rise as a metahuman. And now we're getting into some of the Kabbalah, is the medieval and modern system of Jewish theosophy, mysticism, and thaumaturgy, marked by belief in creation through emanation and cipher method of interpreting scripture, which we're all familiar with in the West. But in the Vedic tradition, it is believed that during Kundalini rising, the creative divine feminine fire of transmutation, which lies dormant at the base of the spine, awakens to purify the chakra system from karmic discharges. Yes, that is how it's described by Fleet Commander Anubis. He's weighing how you've been living your life with your subconscious, which is your nothing more than your soul awareness, your soul contract. We all have a soul, and before we incarnated into these physical genetic vehicles, we had a mission. And if you're not living up to that mission, then you're falling by the wayside. The wheat is being separated from the chaff. But in the Vedic tradition, it is believed that during Kundalini rising, the creative divine feminine fire of transmutation, which lies dormant at the base of the spine, awakens to purify the chakra system from karmic discharges. It gets rid of all that wasted time. And you're either going to get focused and get on track, or you fall by the wayside. The wheat is separated from the chaff. Vedic is defined as of or relating to the Vedas, the language in which they are written are Hindu history and culture, between 1500 BC and 500 BC. And the chakra system, if you have my recent book, Academy of the Ascendant, the book is set up on the seven chakra system, and it basically equates those with dimensions of consciousness. But the chakra system, ancient metaphysical concept, is progressively explained by quantum physics. Okay? All this sort of mystical language, which a lot of these people, these naysayers of woo, like I was in an atheist group on Facebook, and the guy was trying to like come at me and make, oh, all this woo talk, woo, like, woo. And I said, sir, are you familiar with Max Planck, Niels Bohr? And because the statements I made, I just turned around and flipped it and used the language of quantum physics. And of course, they kicked me out of the group. because they want to maintain their dimension of consciousness, which is locked down, ego left brain, which is how the cabal have been controlling this world for so long. But the chakras, though, I'm here to tell you, are energetic vortexes. They're wheels, they're gates, dimensions, portals that act as portals to higher existential planes. And through purification and balancing, offer incomparable opportunities for personal growth and transformation. And yes, we typically, we live through the lower three chakras. Those, and it just substitute the word chakra for qualities of consciousness or focus. Where your energy goes, or where your focus goes, there your energy flows. So if you're just all about, the lower aspects of existence, but how you get into the higher aspects is through the heart center, the heart chakra. Once you begin to awaken that and you develop compassion, work on compassion. Some people they have that naturally from the get-go. I've had to work on that, but I'm telling you, back in August, it was August 11th of 2021. That is what I remember was just. I call it, like my download, and it was, but mostly it was just like having that heart center, what they call receiving the energies of the fourth ray, just being stimulated, and then everything went from there. I began to pay more attention to that. I began to incorporate that energy into my life, and it basically completely blew up my life at that time and resulted in Kundalini activation and completely was in a different direction with my life. So that's what we're all going through, and people have these choices to experience. And here at the Om the New Earth Ashram for Compassion and Strength, I'm just seeking to provide, me and my imaginary staff, we're just seeking to provide, assistance with ascension technologies, spiritual technologies, ascension modalities, and just kind of provide some information that perhaps could be of actionable intelligence to anybody out there in the great digital divide. So, folks, remember, please drink your milk, stay off the grass, like the sign at the post office says. Leave all the illicit drugs alone. Treat your body as a temple, and take your divinity seriously. All right, because we do here at the Om the New Earth Ashram for Compassion and Strength and Ascension Modalities and Spiritual Technologies. Hit that subscribe button.
Namaste, Namaskaram.